Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Club. This is the place everyday real estate investors gather to share their best stories, biggest insights, and favorite tactics to grow a portfolio of cash-flowing properties in today's market. Here's your host, Gabe Peterson.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Club. I hope you guys are having an absolutely fantastic day. It is a nice and cloudy day here in Seattle. It's a Friday. The temperature has gone down, which I'm thankful for because it has been in the 90s recently. And up in Seattle, we have no tolerance for hot weather, which is opposite for where our guest today is. Habib is an attorney, and he's down there in Costa Rica right now. So I'm sure he is okay with hot weather. Shoei, thanks for hopping on the show.
Thank you. Yeah, Egyptian guy, grew up in Florida, lives in Florida, now in Costa Rica, so I can handle the heat.
There you go. Bishoy is an attorney with over 12 years of legal practice. He's represented over $12 billion in transactions, and he also is an LP investor as well as sources land deals off market. He has a lot to go into there, so Bishoy, I told you before we got on here, we always like starting with stories and hearing how people got to where they are. So why don't you start to the beginning of your story in real estate and tell us how'd you get here?
Absolutely. Well, first off, thanks for having me on this show, Gabe. I appreciate it. So my journey begins when I was a kid. My dad had been doing real estate as a second career. He was a pharmacist, and pretty early on in the 80s and 90s, even before I was born, he had decided or realized that the way to make money in this country was through real estate. He was an immigrant, as was my mom. So they learned all this pretty quickly. And so I grew up in a household where my dad was always entrepreneurial, but he was always doing real estate. So what I thought was cool was he made money, but he made his own schedule. He called the shots. He didn't have to answer to anyone. And I always thought that was neat. So whereas my mom, she had a good job, but she had hours she had to be there, right? So I always thought that was cool. So I was fascinated as a kid. Go on to college. And then when I got out of college, I was like, well, I should probably get a degree to fall back on. So I decided to get a law degree. And I always just wanted to go into real estate after that, meaning like an investor or just something in the real estate realm, not an attorney, even with my law degree. So I took all the real estate courses I could in law school and undergrad and did all that. And then when I graduated in 2012 from law school, the market sucked. In terms of finding jobs, at least. And so I was like, well, I guess I'll practice law now. So I got licensed.
You had that to fall back on, yeah.
Now I understand why my dad told me to do that, right? So I got licensed in Florida. I got licensed in New York. The reason I got licensed in New York was because I had an opportunity up there through a family friend to basically work for one of the biggest developers in Manhattan's history. He did hotel development, Sam Chang. And so I worked for the law firm that represented him on all his deals. And he's done over 80, maybe 90 deals in New York now in terms of hotel deals, acquisition, construction, disposition, refinancing, JVing, all the cool deals, for $100 million hotels, right? Or $50 million hotels. We didn't have those deals in Tampa or Orlando.
That would be really cool to just see. And I'm sure like the knowledge you got from being on the sidelines, watching those deals happen, I'm sure it is a priceless for your actual investing career.
It's crazy. You're on these calls and obviously I wasn't on the calls with everyone because I was a young attorney, but hearing the partner on the calls, negotiating a $50 million loan or, whatever it was with the seller, the buyer, it was like out of a movie for me coming from Orlando, where again, now it's different. Florida's boomed quite a bit in the last 20 years, but back then those deals weren't happening very frequently here. Where I grew up. So it was an awesome experience. I did that for 2 years. I loved it. For family reasons, I ended up moving down to Florida because my mom got sick. And so I ended up staying closer to her, got a job in Tampa, and I've been in Tampa ever since. That was 10 years ago now, doing real estate law, finance law, business law, doing all kinds of transactions, totaling, like you mentioned, high value transactions, also work with smaller businesses as well. And about a year ago, I opened up my own law firm. Took me long enough, but finally decided to do it. Once I realized that, nobody could pay me what I was really worth, what my value was, right? And that's a very big leap for attorneys to take, especially attorneys who are comfortable, because it was never my ambition. It never was. And about a month in, I realized it was the absolute best decision I ever made in my life. Right. So at least on a professional side, getting married might have been on the personal side, but um, so I did that a year ago. It's been outstanding. It's been amazing. It's, I get to pick and choose what I want to do, who I want to deal with, who I don't want to deal with, what kind of cases I want to take on, and my schedule, right? So like I'm working today a little bit. I'm in Costa Rica. I got the beach right here in front of me, and we're doing some investment stuff. So if I was working for a firm, I could never just take the day off and build my other business. And so that's kind of my real estate journey. And then on the investment side, I've just kind of been investing in random, not random, but different JV deals and different limited partnerships. And a lot of those were with Sam Chang. They ended up being with Sam Chang because I worked with him. I saw the deals he was doing, and we got in on a very good basis and built that up over a 12, 13-year period. And so that was fun. I raised a fund here in Florida during COVID, which has been very successful so far when people's liquidity dried up, and now we're doing some cool things down here in Costa Rica as well, which we'll touch on.
Nice, man. I love it. And I always like hearing people who kind of take a skill and turn it into a business. It could be anything. You had your legal skill and you turned it into a business. Doctors do this, plumbers, all the different skill types. If you take a skill and you can turn it into a business, that process, I'm sure you got a lot of lessons that you learned over the period of the last year, turning your legal acumen into something that is actually a business. Do you have lawyers working with you, or are you kind of a single shingle kind of guy?
Yeah, the goal is to get out of the practice of law. It's not that I don't like it. It's that I think I'm better at different things. So I do practice a lot. It's probably about 70% of my time now is managing the practice and practicing law. I have 2 attorneys under me. I have 3 full-time staff right now. I'm definitely looking to expand aggressively. And so I'm just trying to be strategic about it, so that I make sure I definitely have the work and the business to supplement that. And so those are the challenges I face every day. For being a year in, I'm pretty proud of where I am, considering that I had no intention, up until maybe a month before I started. It wasn't even a thought on my mind. And then it just happened. So first year was just, like any new business, you're just trying to figure out what the hell's going on.
And that's what that before we get into the land stuff, I want to hear just a little bit about because business is business no matter what you're doing.
That's right.
Even real estate, it's still business.
That's right.
And so this is so fresh in your mind. You're a year in. What were the hurdles that you kind of didn't expect that you ran into when you launched your law business?
Right now, the biggest thing I would say in year one was consistency, consistent workflow, consistent deal flow, consistent business. So I'll tell you an interesting thing. When I started it, let's say in like June of last year, and up until February of this year, whatever that is, 8 months or whatever, I didn't spend a single dollar on marketing. And it's not because I was so busy. It's because I've been working here for 10 years. So I got a lot of referral business, and it was good for a solo guy just doing solo things, but that I'm way more ambitious than that. So eventually I looked in the mirror and I was like, all right, like how do we grow this thing? So then I started spending on marketing in February, and now our marketing budget's every month it's going up. It's like I just doubled it from last month. And so it's not necessarily like a dollar for dollar. It's not like if I spend this, the revenue doubles. So that's what I'm kind of trying to figure out, the sweet spot.
Yeah.
So
what platforms are you using? What's your
What's that?
Yeah. What are you using for marketing? Did you do online? Are you doing mailers? What's your on the legal side? What is the methods mailers that you're using?
No mailers. So I was initially doing Facebook marketing, and what I found out was for my business that's absolute trash, because
Interesting.
Facebook marketing is good if you're what we call emergency law, criminal law, immigration law, personal injury is big. But the people on Facebook are not my clients. They're not my clients. I look for high net worth. I look for sophisticated. I look for investors with multiple properties, with significant assets. Those guys are not generally on Facebook. Right now, we're doing a bunch of Google, and right now we're really tapping into LinkedIn. And so those are a couple places that we're really honed in on, because I think that there's a little bit more people are more sophisticated. There's a little more sophistication there. So, and I also started like being more active on social media. So I started my own Attorney Bishoy is the handle on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube. Started it literally a month ago or 2 months ago now, which is just to get the personal brand out there, right? Different than the law firm, different than the investment side. So all that stuff takes time, but eventually after a few years it'll build up, and then the deal flow starts coming in. But by all means, it's going to be a process, and I understand that. With any new business, it takes time to build that reputation.
Yep. You set up one channel at a time, get it humming, and then move on to the next one. That's how you do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about the land stuff. You mentioned before the call that you guys are doing off-market land. You're focusing on Florida. Land is a big thing. I like it as an asset in the wholesaling side, or even if you're, buying and subdividing, because it takes a lot less capital to get a deal done. And so you mentioned that you guys are working with developers because they are using the old school versions of marketing, which I'm sure is cold calling and mailers. And you guys are doing something a little different. So what are you doing to find the off-market land deals?
Before we continue on with today's guest, I want to tell you guys about a community I'm launching on School to help investors like yourself grow your own portfolio. In this community, you'll get access to all the docs I use, all the systems I've built, everything I've used to grow my own portfolio, as well as instructions and guidance on how to get out there and find great deals, how to finance those deals, and then how to manage them for great returns. Since we're just launching it, the price will be set at a measly $20 per month, and whatever price you join at is the price you'll have for life. We will be increasing the price as the group grows, so if you're at all interested in growing your portfolio along other investors, now is the time to join. I will put the link somewhere in the bio or on our podcast website at therealestateinvestingclub.com, so if you are interested, head on over there. With that said, let's get back to the podcast.
So it's even worse than mailers and cold calling. It's driving. They drive around. Yeah. I'm not joking.
Way.
I'm telling you. So
they don't use Google Maps. That's funny.
Yeah, well, maybe they do after the fact, but and then what they do, they have the young interns showing them how to do that. And I wish I was making this up. So, all right. So where do I start with this? So basically, me and my two partners, we have a couple other businesses. We have a brokerage, a real estate brokerage here in Tampa called Capstar Real Estate. That's cool. That's pretty straightforward. But then we have the investment side. And so what we found out was that these builders, we got connected with some guys who are very well versed in land, like 30 plus year veterans. And they have this really neat proprietary software that basically tells you or shows you the path of progress. So in their software, cool. You could go in and
is that a commercialized software or something that the listeners can hop onto?
Landfinder.ai.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can go in there and see every permit that's been pulled in this county or in this state. Right now, they're only in Florida. And so you could find every Publix that's being built, right? Which Publix, you guys are in Seattle, you don't have Publix, but down here,
it's like a
Publix
Safeway, right?
What's that?
It's like a Safeway, right? Or I don't know.
We don't have Safeway, but it's like it's like a really cool grocery store everyone loves, right?
There you go.
It's amazing.
Okay.
But if they build a Publix, it doesn't lose, right? It's guaranteed that there's people around there. So
yeah. It's like Publix Walmart. That's one of my investing criteria is there has to be a Walmart.
Exactly. But Publix is higher end, right? It's a little more expensive. So if your median household income is going to be higher. So if Publix has done the research and finds that this is a good location, this is a good location, right? You want to be there. So you follow the Publixes, right? That's kind of one of our jokes. But you could look that up. You could look every permit that's been pulled by a builder doing multifamily, whatever. So with that technology, and then what we bring to the table is this, first of all, the manpower. We have a team of 10 full-time outbound salespeople, number one. And then number two, the technology that we leverage to get in contact with these sellers. And now we're having conversations with these sellers who are off market. It's all off market right now. And, so we'll say, hey, listen, like, we're not buyers. We're brokers, but we're not here to broker. We don't want an exclusive listing. But if we can get you an offer on this land, would you be interested? And that approach, what we found, has been highly successful because there's no strings attached and the sellers don't feel like we're trying to screw them over. We're just being transparent and people love it. And a lot of these sellers, I would say, 8 out of 10 are willing to at least have a conversation once we open up like that, right? Versus before, when we say we're buyers, it's what's your number. Now it's, well, we don't have a number because we're going to find a buyer for you. And then, what we really do on the other side of it is we have these builders who are giving us their parameters and saying, we need 20 plus acres, in this zip code or in these counties or around these areas. And, these are our parameters, right? And so we kind of back into it. So we'll run a search, based on what the builders tell us. And it's been, this is a couple months in now, and we have 4 or 5 properties under contract.
Oh, wow.
And a couple of them are pretty sizable. So,
So I'm just thinking of how kind of on the transaction level, how it works. You're still, you're having the conversation with the seller. You're saying, hey, we're not buyers. We're not going to list your property, but we're connected with a bunch of developers. And if we can get you an offer, would you consider it? And they say yes. Then do you sell them do you send them a purchase agreement with your LLC on it and then assign that property or?
No, we haven't done that. So there's a couple ways to do it, right? So that's the beauty of us. We are a brokerage, so we're all realtors, so we could get a commission. The conversation really is, it could go a couple different ways if you want to dive into that conversation, but it could go like, if they have a number, if we could get you your number, would you sell? Yes. Okay, cool. Then we could wholesale it, right? If they want 2.2 million and we find someone at 2.6, yeah, we're making that spread. That's definitely the best opportunity for us. But if they don't have a number and we're like, all right, if we could find you a buyer that's at a number you're comfortable with, will you compensate us? They'll always say yes, right? No one says no to that. And so, like on a one deal, we're making like a 5% commission. It's a multi-million-dollar deal, right? So we could do that way. And then the other way that we've thought about doing it and we're very open to is JVing, right? So let's roll our piece into this builder's, this buyer's equity. And then when they come and develop these multifamily or whatever they develop in 2-3 years, we cash out at a pretty good multiple at that point. So we are very open in terms of how we want to structure. We've done all three. We've done all 3 kinds of structures before, but that's the beauty of us is, and if they tell us like I want to list it, we can list it, right? Which we're not really going for, but that's an option. So it's nice to have different options with these sellers. What I'll say though, to your question about it being an antiquated industry, is we've sat in rooms with these builders. Because we're working with regional builders now. We're not on the national scale yet, but we're working with like regional builders in Florida and land entitlement companies as well. And the things they're saying to us in terms of how they're finding land is crazy to us, that they're literally driving around, writing down addresses, having the interns that are in college go up and look these addresses, go up on the public records, try to find out who the owners are, like manually do all this. And poor interns, like he's doing this manually, spending a whole day driving, 8 hours of driving all day.
When all he needs is property radar and a skip tracing software.
and so we're like, we could make your job easier, and they love us, right? These guys who work with the builders whose job is to find the land, they're like, dude, make my job easier. We'll pay you guys whatever we have to. So those are the conversations we're having. They're opening the door for us, which we're surprised. The end goal or the exit with this would be to go national and eventually have first, not exclusive, but a first like 10-day exclusive with a national builder who puts us on payroll and says, like a Lennar, and says like, all right, here's $1 million a year. Anything you find in these markets, you give to us first. We have a 10-day first right of refusal or exclusive. And then after that, you could take it to market or take it to your other builders. So that's how we envision this going. But, we are in the early phases, but we have seen some early success, and we really think it could revolutionize the way things are done.
Nice, man. I love it. It sounds like you guys got a good process there, and hearing how antiquated the builders are with their own processes for finding deals. There's definitely an opportunity. Do you guys do anything past the transaction stage? Do you guys do any entitlement? Do you do any permitting, anything like that?
No, we don't do that.
Got it. Cool. Well, it looks like we have run down the clock, so it is time to jump into the quick question round. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Starts with education, could be any form. I need 2 recommendations, one for general life wisdom, one for real estate. And it could be, as I mentioned, any form, could be books, movies, podcasts, YouTube channels, whatever.
YouTube. I'm on YouTube. I start every freaking morning. I when I wake up, I stretch and kind of like meditate, but it's always YouTube, and it's always like I'll just pop my YouTube now. It knows me, right? The algorithms know me, and so it always shows me pretty cool videos that are relating to things that I like. Which a lot of it's like real estate trends, real estate news, AI.
Is there
I've been
any?
super heavy.
Is there a
Yeah.
specific YouTube channel that you could recommend?
Man, I forget his name right now. There's a dude that always pops up on my feed. He's like a balder dude. I can't believe I don't remember his name right now. I think his name's Eric, and I don't know the name of his channel. But he's on the ground. He's telling you everything about what's going on in real estate today in real time versus what you're hearing in the news. That's all, not necessarily true.
Just Google bald guy real estate. I'm sure you'll be able to find it.
I'm gonna find him right now. But go ahead, I'll find him.
All right, next question.
Reventure Consulting. This is the guy right here.
Reventure. Oh yeah, I think I've had him on the podcast actually.
He's awesome. He's
Yeah.
awesome.
All right. Next question is for your younger self. So let's go back to the Bishoy who was just graduating college back in 2012. Go back to him, look him in the eye, give him one piece of advice moving forward.
Buy every single piece of freaking real estate you can.
I'm going to put that in the get started earlier bucket. We keep a tally here on the show because so many investors that come on the show, I ask this question and they say, I wish I got started earlier. So this is a message to everybody out there listening. If you guys are listening and you have not gotten started yet, if you haven't bought your first property, this message is to you. Just get started. Everybody wishes they got started earlier. All you got to do is just go out there and buy something. That gets you in the game, and that's where you need to be.
What I'll say too, I'll add to that, Gabe, is I had like a big fear of failing and like because I didn't know what I was doing, and that's 90% of us, like 99% of us. Actually, everybody has that, but it's paralysis, right? And don't be paralyzed with fear because you just think, well, what's the worst that could happen? You make a mistake, maybe you lose a little bit of money. But when you're young, you don't have money, you have time. So maybe you lose a little bit of time, but you learn. You always learn. And from that experience, you get better. And in a year or 2 years, instead of never doing anything and wishing you did, you'll be 2 years of wisdom, 2 years of screw ups. You'll never do those things again. And that's kind of my advice to young people is like, just do it, man. Just try it.
Yep. Yeah. And it's funny, even today, when I'm under contract on a property, I do the initial underwriting. I'm like, yeah, this pencils, this works out. This is a great deal. We get under contract. And then when it's time to actually close the deal, I always freak out. And I'm like, no, this is a horrible deal. The Metro, there's something wrong with the Metro. There's something wrong with whatever.
Yeah.
You always freak out. You just gotta, clench your fists and trust your initial underwriting, your initial analysis of the deal. And just get it done because there's always going to be that little voice in your head that's afraid of making mistakes and afraid of things just going horribly. Sometimes they do go wrong, but it's never the end of the world. You can always pick yourself back up. So, all right,
the worst action is inaction.
There you go. Absolutely. All right, the next question is about the U.S. It is a big place. There is tons of opportunity out there. Give me the single metro you're most excited about investing in today.
Well, so we're in Tampa Bay, and I think it was the hottest market in the U.S. For a long time. It's cooled off significantly. Prices are down 20% ish. If you can afford Florida, invest in Florida. If you can afford it, that's a big if. It is expensive, but I'm telling you, it will not be. It's not going anywhere. All right. If you cannot afford Florida, go to the Midwest. Go to Michigan. Go to Ohio. You can find properties for $100,000. You can cash flow them. They'll rent for 1% of that, 1.5% of that. You can cash flow. Appreciation isn't there. If you're looking for appreciation, Florida. If you're looking for cash flow, Midwest.
There you go. Yeah, Florida has been doing very well recently. But you never know. You gotta make sure and underwrite the specific area you're in.
Yep.
And that leads us to the next question. You've kind of already alluded to this, but this is about finding deals. It all starts with getting in contact with the seller and penning that purchase agreement. So what is your favorite way to generate leads and find new deals?
Off market. I mean, we use a lot of like texting to get in touch with people. And that's really in this day and age the most effective because nobody likes getting called. especially like single family. It's different for every asset class, but single family people in Florida, they hate you if you call them. They get 10 calls a day. You call people in the Midwest and they answer the calls and they're happy to talk to you because no one's calling them. People with land probably get less calls. So it really, every different market, every different asset class has its own strategy. If you call someone on the commercial side, you better come correct. If you don't know your stuff, they're hanging up on you in 3 seconds flat. So you just have to, you got to feel it out. But the texting, the SMS stuff is the best.
Yeah, texting for sure is a solid strategy. But every year there's always something that happens, and we have to switch platforms because for whatever reason the platform we're using doesn't work anymore. And so right now we're using Launch Control. We've actually, there's been an issue with Launch Control recently. We've been thinking about switching to what was the platform? I don't remember, but yeah, you got to find the right one. Launch Control has been working for us. If you guys want to use that, I'm not sure it will always be working, so don't hold me to that one. But texting is definitely a good method of reaching out.
Yep.
All right. Next question is about lessons learned. Not every deal that we get into goes the way we expect it. A lot of times a wrench is thrown into the mix and we get to learn a lesson. So what was a deal that went a little sideways for you? And then what was the lesson you pulled from it?
That's funny. I was working with a wholesaler back in the day and a couple of years ago, and he ended up running off. He said he'd manage a project if I bought it from him. And he was a client of mine first, and I saw he was doing deals. And basically, he was gonna, if I bought the property, he was gonna make a wholesale fee, but he told me he'd manage the flip. So I trusted him. I bought the property. He made a fat fee on the front end. He managed it for about 2 weeks and then he fled. He just kind of ran off and disappeared. And as it turns out, he did that to a ton of people. I don't know what the lesson is there, except just be careful who you go in business with. There was no signs. Even when I look back, I was closing deals with him and then he just disappeared. He just turned out to be a scumbag. So just be careful and who you're dealing with, who you're going into business with. I'm an attorney. So I unfortunately see the worst in people on a daily basis. So my guard is always up anyways. But don't let that scare you. I mean, there's still good people out there, but just vet people, vet opportunities, just be careful, and then just take that leap of faith, like we said.
Yep. You got to be careful who you're going into business with for sure. Especially on the contractor side. I feel like they tend to screw people over, but there are good people out there, and that is just the lesson is once you find good people, hold on to them because they are worth a lot in this business.
There you go. Way to wrap a bow around it.
All right. That leads us to the very last question. This is for the listeners. You've given us a lot to think about. I'm sure people want to reach out, get in contact with you. This is a two-parter. Where can they find you? And then what can they expect when they reach out?
So if you're on Instagram at Attorney Bishoy, that's attorney spelled out, and then Bishoy, same on TikTok, same on YouTube. I'm on LinkedIn, Bishoy M. Habib, ESQ, just like my name says here. As far as my law firm, it's levacylegal.com, L-E-V like Victor, A-C-Y legal. I wanted to help clients leave a legacy. That's where the name came from. And it's Bishoy at levacylegal.com is the email, 813-553-2699.
Perfect. I will put that link in the show notes. So if you guys want to reach out to Bishoy, just click a little more in the description. It'll pull down that full description. In there, you can find his links.
And if you're interested in the off-market stuff or the brokerage stuff, it's Capstar. So at Capstar FL on Instagram, and then capstarfl.com. That's all the investment and the brokerage side if you're interested.
Right on. All right, man. Well, that wraps it up. Thank you very much for hopping on the show.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. For everybody who's here with us today, thank you guys for showing up. You are the reason we do this. So if you guys have any questions, reach out to me, Gabe with realestateinvestingclub.com. If you want to support the show, just leave us a review on Apple or whatever you're listening to this on. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great week. Keep rocking real estate, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. All right, before I officially sign off, I have a quick announcement to make. If you're interested in becoming a passive investor in one of my deals, my own company, Kaizen Properties, is looking for capital partners for our upcoming projects. We invest in what are known as recession-resistant assets, mainly self-storage facilities, mobile home and RV parks, and industrial properties.
If you're interested in investing and would like to learn a little bit more about my company, our investing criteria, and some of the previous projects we've done, go to the Real Estate Investing Club podcast at therealestateinvestingclub.com and scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page. Click on the Invest With Us button. That'll pop up the investor form. Fill that out, and we will reach back out to you as soon as we can. Or if you prefer a little bit more of a personal touch, you can reach out to me at gabe@therealestateinvestingclub.com. So really, that is it. Again, it was a pleasure hanging out with you guys during this episode, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.